All right, on this episode of the Paranormal Mind Podcast, we're going to be talking about the origins of EVP.
Ooh.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Paranormal Mind Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. What's up? I know you missed that.
No. And I threw you off this time. I didn't pause.
I know.
I'm starting to learn.
You're challenging me.
Yeah, I'm starting to learn a little bit. So, welcome back to the Paranormal Mind Podcast. It has been a little bit.
A few weeks, yeah.
We've been extremely busy, so thank you for your patience.
Yep.
We have a lot going on, and there's not a lot that we can really talk about too much.
All will be revealed in time.
But we can say that we have been filming a lot more, and it's not just our show, but it's other shows, and there's a specific reason for that. And again, we can't really say much, but I need to adjust this real quick.
Squeak, squeak. We got Mandy Purvis, producer Mandy Purvis in the house.
Yeah. And Mandy can't hear this, but it's applause.
Yay.
I live for the applause.
Oh, my
you
God.
live for the applause. Oh, jeez.
Oh, Lord.
That's Gaga.
I know.
Oh, I didn't.
He had no idea.
Sorry.
My God. What am I married to?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I ask that all the time, too.
How did this happen to me?
But anyway, thank you all so much for being patient with us. Like I said, I know that, going a couple of weeks without episodes can be...
You guys are going to be
kind of it'd be jarring a little bit. Like, where the hell are they?
You at our front doors with a pitchfork before long.
Yeah. So all two of you that listen, thank you.
Be a small group, right?
And the two is me and you. Our wives don't even listen.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I do every Friday.
Yeah, you listen right here.
I listen to the Incoherent Fangirl, and then I listen to the Paranormal Mind every Friday. And
See,
then I listen to
I do.
Stassi.
Awesome.
I do
That's
every
awesome.
Sunday whenever you record.
Yep.
Nope, I got
Whenever
my
you
three.
record.
I got my 3 podcasts I listen to at work every Friday.
All
French you
right.
very much.
Yeah, that is true. She does.
Do you listen to ours first?
No, I listen to mine first.
Rude.
But I listen to you guys before I listen to Stassi, and I love her.
Well,
So.
I mean, you should.
I don't even know who that is.
I don't know. So she is a girl she's basically reality TV. What was that? Vanderpump Rules?
Yeah.
Isn't that what she was on? And now she has her own podcast that is wildly successful.
she's had that podcast for 10 years.
Yeah. And,
I just love her.
but she's actually into paranormal stuff too, which is kind of interesting.
I'll manifest for you right now. We'll ghost hunt with Stassi. I'll go on a ghost hunt if Stassi goes in New Orleans, where she's from.
Well, then we have to make that happen because
Yeah.
you're scared of frogs.
Everything.
You're scared of frogs,
Yeah.
Mandy.
We're just waiting for that email.
The second y'all can get Stassi on a ghost hunt, then I'll go.
Well,
on.
I mean, if there's anybody that can make that happen,
I'm manifesting
she's
it for you
standing
right now.
or sitting right over there.
I'll manifest it. We're gonna ghost
Yeah,
hunt
well,
with Stassi.
I think it's going to be a little more than manifesting. You may have to actually reach out to her. I don't think she's psychic.
She
could
is
be.
though. She is.
She is.
She had somebody tell her that she was psychic and she's trying to learn.
I mean,
I've had people tell me I'm psychic.
I've had people
too,
tell
but-
me a lot of things, and some of it, it's fine.
I'm just saying she's where I get all
He's
of my
heard me tell him some
manifesting.
things before. We will not talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So on today's episode, we're going to be diving deep into the strange phenomenon of EVP, or electronic voice phenomenon.
I think this is a great topic because EVPs have been around for a very long time.
Yep. Very long time. So EVP, if you don't know, refers to mysterious voice-like recordings that seem to manifest on audio devices during paranormal investigations and allegedly represent the voices of spirits or other interdimensional entities attempting to communicate.
Spooky.
So the history and evolution of EVP is a fascinating rabbit hole that begins in the early 20th century and winds through mediums, psychics, skeptics, and paranormal researchers, all trying to understand the nature of these bizarre voice recordings. So let's start at the very beginning and trace the origins of EVP through its most influential pioneers and developments. So the first EVP recordings, we'll talk about that a little bit, which this is fascinating. I remember doing a talk about this years ago. And I mean, it dates back to the 40s.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
Yep.
So we'll talk about it. So while the concept of recording spirit voices dates back to the early days of spiritualism, of the spiritualism religious movement in the 1800s, the first person credited with accidentally capturing EVP in American, excuse me, I can't talk. The first person credited with accidentally capturing EVP is American photographer Attila von Szalay. It's Szalay in 1941.
Okay.
So von Szalay was experimenting with recording on a 78 RPM record when he picked up some unintelligible voices that did not seem to be present during the recording session.
Ooh.
He dismissed them as potential radio interference at first. However, in 1956, von Szalay started using a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and this time captured what he believed to be clear voices amidst the static and audio artifacts. Some of the first messages he claimed to have recorded included, "This is G," like this is, and then the letter
What up?
G.
This is G.
Oh God,
Like, no.
in that okay.
We
Please
need a
stop.
spray bottle of water to just spray him in the face.
No, what we need is one of those wooden spoons
What am I,
where I
cat?
can take his hand and just go pop
Yeah,
every time
that.
he says something.
Well,
Let's do that. Let's incorporate that.
I
That
like
would be,
it. Yeah.
I don't know. I have a dark history with wooden spoons.
Ew.
Mandy, who did you marry
I
again?
don't know.
So that was my mom's weapon
on the
of
skinny
choice.
end or the thicker end?
That was her weapon of choice whenever I was acting up. I've broken many wooden spoons in my day.
That was
They're no
any
match
parent-
for
that
me.
That was any
Yeah.
parent's weapon of choice
It's
in the
true.
South.
Yeah.
Whatever they could get their hands on.
She
I
drilled
suppose.
holes in a ping pong
Yep.
paddle.
Yeah. Trust
for
me,
him.
I've had that too. So the messages that he first claimed to have recorded was, "This is G," and not "What up, G," but "This is G." This is G. Hot dog art. So hot dog art. You know,
Okay, gotcha.
and even "Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you all."
Okay, that's a good one.
So von Szalay became convinced these were the voices of spirits communicating through his recording devices. He began conducting structured recording sessions with a custom apparatus involving an insulated cabinet, microphone, and external speakers in an attempt to directly capture spirit voices. While von Salay's work was met with skepticism, it did inspire others like Swedish filmmaker Fredrik Jurgensen to also start experimenting with recording alleged spirit voices in the late 1950s. So Jurgensen and the Raudive voices, okay? We're going to talk
All right.
about that. So Fredrik Jurgensen's own journey into EVP began by accident in 1959 when he was recording bird songs and picked up a voice he believed to be his deceased father speaking to him amidst the recordings, which is
Dang.
interesting. Yeah. This launched Jurgensen into extensively recording more audio in attempts to capture additional spirit voices. So I want to stop here for a second because we think that all of us doing this EVP stuff
Is
nowadays
new.
in the
Yeah.
modern world, this has been going on and people have been trying to do this for a very, very long time. And I just think it's interesting that a lot has changed in our world and in the modern world, but a lot has not. Like people's curiosity and stuff has
Right.
been just as prevalent then as it is
Yeah.
now.
So, I kind of want to make sure EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, it's a phenomenon and it's been going on for a long time and they still don't know how it happens. Right.
Even outside of EVP, I remember kind of recently on y'all's podcast, I recommended the London Seance Society by, I think it's Sarah Penner. And it's about like Victorian era paranormal investigation. Like you think that it's a new thing. No, they've been hunting for ghosts and trying to make contact for hundreds of years.
Oh yeah, the table tipping and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The little seances that they would do. That's been back in.
So this isn't 1800s. A 2010 thing, like
right?
This is,
right, and that's what people think it's a fad. I mean, I've talked to certain people that they think, oh, this is a fad. Y'all are going and trying to get spooked and all this stuff.
Right.
And that's not the case. I mean, people have been curious about this stuff.
Yep.
And life after death for a very long time.
In a multifaceted way too, right? So like even before we deemed it paranormal activity, actually it was more believed in back then, right? It was more believed. I mean, that's where the voodoo, that's where even in Egyptian times, they believed that.
And the gods and all that stuff. Yeah.
The only reason it's paranormal to us now is because, we kind of moved away from that belief, but then you still have instances like this where it's still happening.
Yeah, I think it was more accepted back then.
Yeah, for sure.
I think one of the reasons too why it's more scrutinized now is because we're in the age of the internet.
Oh yeah, of course.
And everybody can get on there and say their piece and not have any consequences because they can just go and be anonymous and say whatever they want.
I like to call those keyboard warriors.
And then we're also in like an era of religious, I don't want to say insanity, but taking things to the millionth degree. If I don't want to hunt and get EVPs, you shouldn't either. You can't. So there's that too, is religious fear of.
That's not religion. That's just people thinking that their opinions are the end all be all.
Well, here in the South, it is a religious thing. But what's crazy about that statement that you just said, Mandy, too, is back then in the 1800s, it was more of a spiritualist movement.
Oh,
I would
think,
yeah.
So it's kind of strange how things...
The pendulum swung so far to the other end.
Right. We do have a lot more extremists on both ends of the spectrum.
Oh, for sure.
And it kind of... It hinders people from actually wanting to search. And I think this is why we do the searcher stuff too.
Yeah.
Is because there's a lot of people that are scrutinized. And we've talked to many people before where they're like, well, I didn't want to share the story because I thought I was crazy. And it's because there's people that Mandy mentioned that heavily scrutinize a person's story,
which is wild, right?
Or their experience.
In a world where everybody can voice their own opinions without fear of like repercussion now, and go as far as to try and enforce those opinions, there are still people out there that are afraid to talk about things.
Yep.
Well, because there are repercussions now, because they'll share things and then people they'll receive backlash from people because they don't agree with a certain stance that they've made.
And they'll dox you and they'll make false claims to your job and they'll like...
Oh yeah, they'll try to ruin you. They will cancel you, which I hate this whole cancel culture stuff now. I do feel that people need to be held accountable in certain instances. But if you're going after people's like livelihoods just because you don't agree with what they say, I think that's wrong.
It's a bit much.
Yeah. Even if what they said was wrong, because granted, we have the freedom to say things. Of course, there's consequences to what we say.
Right.
You're not free from your consequences of what you say.
Well, I mean,
but if you may be harming somebody with your words, right?
Right.
Which we harm our spouses sometimes with our words, right?
Yeah.
I think that, of course, you got to be careful, especially in the internet age. But if you're not doing anything illegal or anything like that, your livelihood shouldn't be threatened just because you've said something that you might be controversial to some or whatever.
As challenging as life can get, I still choose to believe that there's a certain amount of karma, and I don't have to go and correct everybody and that I come across that I disagree with, because if it's truly like a monumental problem, it'll be corrected.
Well,
on
and
its own.
Being quiet is free, and you can
For sure
put your money where your mouth doesn't need to be. There are businesses that have taken stances that I don't want my money going to, and I don't give my money to those businesses, and I don't have to say who it is. I don't have to be vocal about it because you're not getting my money. At the end of the day, that to me
that's
is
your
what
choice.
matters.
Yeah.
I'm not going to financially support a company who does XYZ that I have a moral opposition to.
Yeah. I mean, you ignoring the commentary of somebody that or their stance on something, that's easier to do, I think, than
sure.
Or not ignoring it, but saying, you know what, I disagree. I'm not going to focus my attention towards your.
I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to give you my money.
Yeah, and that's a lot easier than going and trying to completely destroy or ruin it.
I think it's kind of ridiculous.
They'll ruin themselves.
Yeah,
and they don't need any help with that.
Now, of course, there are sometimes there's always an exception to that rule. Sure, there will be times where this business needs to be shut down. They're doing heinous things, whatever. We're not saying, that there's never an exception to the rule. This is just in general.
That's kind of to my point, is that if they are truly doing stuff like that, they will be shut down.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They can't keep that under a cloak.
Right. Well, I mean, businesses, they'd be out at, man, we go on rabbit trail.
I know.
I was thinking, how do we get here from EVP?
I don't even know how we got here, but yeah, I mean, businesses or people will ruin themselves all on their own.
That's my thing. It's
you don't have to dox somebody.
No. Anyway, I have no clue how we got here. Sorry about that, but we do this a lot on this.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
It's fine. It's okay. Do y'all remember what we're talking about? We're talking about EVP right now. All right. So Jurgensen, we were talking about Jurgensen, which is another guy that had a journey with EVP work. All right. His work caught the attention of Konstantin Raudive, a Latvian psychologist who had been studying unusual phenomena.
Okay.
Raudive teamed up with Jurgensen, and over the next decade, I can't speak or anything. Don't you even press that button. Don't. Over the next decade, proceeded to make over 100,000 recordings that he believed contained messages from the dead. 100,000. Okay.
Okay. That's a lot.
This is in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
Right. So some of Raudive's most compelling recordings were made in an RF shielded laboratory.
Really?
And appeared to contain intelligible words and phrases amidst the static and noise.
And they would have had to still been using analog recorders back then. I mean, so these aren't digital.
It's reel to reel.
This is reel to reel
stuff. Yep.
And having to sit there and listen to every single bit of that instead of having the little blip that we can see on a audio file.
Right.
Oh,
well, and hell, we still have to listen to, and it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. But imagine doing that with reel to reel.
Right. Where you don't even have visual help at all.
Though, looking back at it now, man, I guess if he was going through every single one, maybe he did find that many EVPs. I wonder if we reviewed every single bit of audio that we ever do, how many EVPs we would find. Probably a lot.
Well, not just that, we're using digital recorders nowadays, and you got to be careful. A lot of people will criticize the DR60 recorder.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's an older style Panasonic recorder. But I think with these newer devices that we have, sometimes there's software built into them. Noise canceling software. So I think it's counterproductive to use those at times for EVP work because you're having a lot of that static and stuff kind of
I agree,
taken out digitally, which is crazy.
And I think that's when you do catch EVPs on those, they may be rarer, but they'll be more Class A oriented where they're way more evident, but you probably would have heard them with your own ears as well.
Yeah. Yep. So let's see. So he believed the clarity of these Raudive voices ruled out simple explanations like interference or stray radio voices because they were in a RF shielded environment. In 1968, Raudive published his first book, Breakthrough, which documented his years of work capturing EVP, playing samples of the strange voices, and attempting to interpret their meaning. The book launched EVP into mainstream awareness and sparked heated debate over whether it could actually represent messages from the afterlife or other dimensions. While Raudive had his share of skeptics who dismissed the voices as anomalous audio artifacts, he continued his work and published 2 more books before his death in 1974. Raudive's pioneering efforts laid the foundations for modern EVP research and investigation methods used by paranormal enthusiasts today. Now, another person around the same time was Raymond Bayless. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
I hadn't heard of him.
It was in the 50s and 70s when he did a lot of his work.
Okay.
Bayless collaborated with von Szalay on early EVP recording experiments and co-authored the 1979 book, Phone Calls from the Dead, documenting their work. So if you're listening to this and you're hearing these books, again, it is Phone Calls from the Dead and what was the
Breakthrough, an amazing experiment in electronic communication with the dead.
There you go.
Hey.
There you go.
Producer man.
We were just going to say Breakthrough, but that's even better. This is why we have a producer on the show. That's
I produce nothing but additional information.
That's what we need. Turns out that's exactly what we need.
That is what we need. Yep. All right. So let's talk about some modern EVP research. Okay.
Okay.
In the decades since Raudive's work, EVP has remained a topic of intense interest and debate with the paranormal community.
All right.
We know this.
Yeah.
Numerous researchers and investigators have attempted to capture their own spirit voices and communications through a variety of recording methods and technologies.
Yeah.
We're part of those people. Okay.
By people, we mean us.
Yeah. One of the most famous modern EVP researchers was Frank Sumption.
Yep.
Who claimed to have recorded thousands of spirit messages over his lifetime using radio sweep techniques and developed an intricate cataloging system to study them.
Ooh. I know where this is going. Do y'all know where this is going?
So, yeah, and we'll go there already. He made the Frank's box.
Yep. Anybody know what the Frank's box is?
So you used to own one.
I used to own one, yes.
And what
before
is it?
the SB7 existed.
So the SB7 is another spirit box type device made by Gary Galka. But Frank Sumption and the Frank's box, talk about it a little bit. Like, what did it consist of? Because you owned one.
Let me take it back. I mean, this had to have been like 10 years ago.
Putting you on the spot.
I know.
Buddy.
I mean, the best thing that I can compare it to, though the technology was vastly older and vastly different, is the SB7 Spirit Box, right? And I do not think that we would have the Spirit Box that we have today without the Frank's box before. It was a more analog version of that, I guess, and how it was built was instead of digitally doing the way Gary Galka has done the spirit boxes, which are also great. I love the SB7. All of those, the sweeping of radio frequencies and static and whatnot was done analog inside the device back then. But that's kind of partly due to the time period, right? It was still early into, if there was anything digital out there, it was still early into that time period. And I had, that was, if I had one, that means that it was like getting towards the tail end of it being phased out. I mean, there's probably people out there that have Frank boxes today.
Oh, there's I know
it's not as popular as.
I know of one person that owns dozens of them.
Yeah.
Do you know who did the first Radio Shack hack?
Radio Shack.
We used to have one of those.
The Shack hack. They called it the Shack hack. It was like where you kind of took the sweeper mechanism.
Yeah.
You took one of the old radios and you took away that function. So it was, you had to take it apart and then remove this one piece.
Right.
That would make the radios keep going. You know who did that?
Mm-mm.
Bill Chappell.
Oh, really? Okay.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah. All right. So that's just a little useless information, I guess. But it's pretty cool because now you can't really do those unless you find those.
It's hard to find the technology, right?
Right. But because Radio Shack is out of business now, or last I heard they were.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to go searching on the internet to find a specific device.
And it would probably be like $7 or $8 grand now.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. But all right. So in the 1980s, William O'Neill caused a stir after claiming to have built an electronic device called the Spiritcom, based on psychic communications from a deceased scientist.
Spiritcom.
Yep. O'Neill stated the device allowed him to have real-time, two-way conversations with spirits. However, no one was able to replicate O'Neill's results. Today, EVP researchers employ everything from simple digital voice recorders and ghost boxes to more complex devices like Frank's box,
right,
and Ovilus devices that use sweeping radio frequencies and speech synthesis in an attempt to capture spirit communication. And the Ovilus was made by Bill Chappell as well.
Yeah.
And it's got a word bank of over 2,000 words that operates off of changes in electromagnetic frequency,
which is insane.
Yep. I love Bill Chappell's work, and I mean, the reason why I like his work specifically is not just because I know him and he's a friend of mine.
Right.
I like it because he doesn't claim to believe in ghosts.
Yeah.
He basically says, I don't know what we're dealing with, but I do know that there's some strange things out there that hopefully some of my devices can help recognize some of these changes in the atmosphere or recognize different things.
Right.
And it could be something that can further the field, or it could be nothing at all. But I'm going to make things that I think would be the best approach to figuring out what's going on. And he's very humble in that regard. And I really, really appreciate him for that.
I mean, he's sent us some experiments you'll see in some of the new episodes of Searchers, and I won't tell you the title name, but yeah, I mean, he definitely thinks outside the box on how, and we'll offer him a mindset of what we're thinking, and he'll take that and try and make something that'll be useful to test it.
Yeah. Yep. So paranormal investigation teams often spend hours recording audio during haunted location visits. Of course, we know this too. Yep. Then they go back and comb through the recordings looking for any anomalous voice clips amidst the static and background noise. While some of these modern alleged EVP recordings do seem to contain clear, intelligible phrases and responses, the scientific community largely dismisses EVP as a form of auditory pareidolia, which pareidolia, is where people's brains simply recognize patterns and voices.
Yeah, you can call it audio matrixing as well.
Yep. And there's also visual
matrixing.
Yeah.
Matrixing as well, too.
Yep. Critics argue there is no credible evidence that EVP recordings actually contain communications from interdimensional entities or the afterlife. They provide more mundane explanations like apophenia, equipment artifacts, and even outright hoaxing to explain the phenomena, which, I get completely, right? We cannot say that these EVPs or whatever are Grandma Betty or whoever else, right? We can't say that. And it could be voices from other parts of the world or anything. We don't really know. I do know that sound, there's an interesting thing, and there was a study done that sound travels in a straight line, but something to do with like our atmosphere and how gravity works and how we're rotating, that sometimes they've had certain scientists that are trying to capture the first word ever spoken, and they claim to have gotten some of the first words ever spoken recorded on a device.
Okay.
Because they say that sound travels and it just continues going, right? So when we're rotating, that sound arcs and comes back. And some at some point reaches us in this present time, which is kind of, I'm not explaining it as well as it has been explained and I've read about.
Right.
And I'm sorry for that, but I'm a Southern boy from Georgia.
I'm just a boy.
You get what you get, okay? You just get
and
what
you
you
don't
get.
pitch a fit.
Oh,
You
good.
get what you
Where's
get.
the womp womp?
Nope. You get what you get, and you don't pitch a fit,
Yeah.
boy.
Hey, what are the hip teens saying nowadays? Womp womp.
They're not
Womp,
saying
womp.
hip teens, that's for sure. So we're recording this in a haunted building. How weird is it going to be if we get an EVP on this
Ooh.
episode? Wouldn't that be wild?
Well, now we can't say that we caught one because now they're going to say that we fabricated it.
Did you
But
hear
that would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be wild?
That would be amazing.
Did you hear that?
You're a mother faker.
Here we go with the
Did you hear
voice.
that? I heard it.
It was a
Stop.
devil voice.
Oh, weird.
My God. I can't
You're
with
like
you.
you're like a little kid, dude. Honestly. All right.
I
What?
didn't do anything.
Okay, what'd you press?
I just pressed this button.
What is that
It's just an
button?
arrow, man.
What does the button mean?
It just changed to another set of things. It's fine. Everything's fine.
All right. So the eternal debate, that's what we're going to talk about next. All right. So despite the skepticism and mundane explanations proposed, EVP remains one of the most tantalizing forms of potential evidence for life after death and other dimensions of existence. The idea that spirits or other entities could use recording devices as a form of instrumental transcommunication, or ITC,
All right.
to make their voices heard is an intriguing possibility. For proponents, EVP provides a plausible framework for how discarnate beings without physical vocal mechanisms could still produce voice phenomena by being able to manipulate and modulate energy waves in electromagnetic fields. So this is one thing that I've always said was kind of odd to me, and why I would question EVP in certain facets, because you think about this. You hear a disembodied voice,
Yeah.
which means there's no body making the voice, right?
How?
How? Because our, like, how we hear voices or how we make voices is through our vocal
Ooh.
boxes, right?
So that leads that goes back to me. That means like quantum overlap or something. So there is a physical person making that voice somewhere.
That or we're all frequency. Like, if you remember that quote from Tesla, he's like, if you're wanting to know, it's something like, if you're wanting to know the meaning of life, focus on energy, frequency, and vibration.
Yeah.
Because we're energetic beings.
All right.
So if we can hear things audibly through, like, we can hear certain levels of frequencies without there being a vocal box, that could be another thing that maybe it could be manipulated. Like EVP, a lot of enthusiasts think it could be manipulated in a way to where we can understand what is being said. It'll make your head hurt.
Yeah.
Seriously, it makes my head hurt just thinking about it. So there's a lot of people that argue that some of the most compelling EVP recordings contain voices and responses that are directly relevant to the context and questions being asked by investigators.
Okay.
The voices also appear to come through radio sources and speaker outputs in real time.
I gotcha.
And that's basically explaining what a ghost box does.
Right.
All right. While there are certainly many low quality and ambiguous EVP clips, proponents believe a significant portion of the higher grade recordings defy simple dismissal as pareidolia audio
That's kind of
artifacts.
where my mind is there's some you can't discredit that.
No.
It's that at least.
Right. So they view EVP as worthy of further scientific study as a potential form of instrumental transcommunication. Of course, skeptics remain unconvinced and continue to argue that there are no credible EVP recordings that cannot be explained through mundane causes like radio interference, equipment malfunctions, and audio matrixing effects.
Right.
The debate rages on with both sides holding firm in their beliefs over whether EVP is a legitimate paranormal phenomenon or not. Perhaps future advancements in recording technology and audio analysis will finally unravel the mystery of where these strange voices could be coming from. Now, before we end this episode, though, I want to share one of my most profound experiences in regards of EVP ever. That kind of really got me like supercharged into going headstrong into this. And if you have an EVP story, we can talk about that after. Okay, so this happened probably, 14 years ago, 13, 14 years ago, long time ago. And it was with my brother-in-law, and y'all know my brother-in-law. But he was at this house, and he was freaking out one night. And jumped out of his bedroom window at like 3:30 in the morning and came to my house. Now, at first I was thinking, okay, this has got to be, are you on drugs? Or
what's wrong with
going on?
Yeah.
But he was terrified, and he's an adult man that's just saying, you know what? I was in my bedroom. I was hearing what sounded like my couch being picked up and slammed in the living room.
Dang.
What?
Stuff like that. And he was like, dude, I don't want to go back. Can I just stay at your house? I was like, well, how about I go with you right now? If you think that there was your couch being slammed, why don't we go there to make sure that nobody broke in or something like that, right? So, but of course, just to be safe, I brought my recorder with me, my digital recorder. I wasn't like super in investigating at that point. I was just I was interested, and I had stuff, but I wasn't like going out every weekend doing it. And we get there, and as soon as we pull up, and I don't know if it was just his energy that I was feeding off of, but as soon as we pulled up in the driveway, it felt horrible. Like, I do not want to go into this house. I felt immediately panicky, like something isn't right. So I get out first, and he stays in the car because he's that freaked out. Like, he's freaked out. I get out, and I was like, give me the key and I'll open the door and go in there. The door was still locked, everything. I open the door, walk in, nothing's disturbed. Everything was fine. And so I motioned for him I was like, come on in. I was like, look, it doesn't look like anybody broke in here.
Yeah.
You say that you're hearing all this stuff. How about we do this just to give you peace of mind? Let's just do this. So I told him to turn off his AC, turn off everything, the fans, everything. So that way we don't hear any wind or any sound on the recorder. I was like, let's just place it in the living room. We'll walk out and we'll go to the car and we'll sit in there and we'll just let it roll for like 30 minutes. So we did that and went back inside, and I played back like 5 minutes of it.
All right.
Nothing. So he's like, okay, man. He's like, I appreciate you coming. I don't know what it was. I don't know if maybe I was halfway asleep and then, I was kind of imagining the stuff or whatever, or I was kind of like in a dream state. He's like, it's fine. I appreciate you coming over here. Everything will be fine. So the next day, I just decided to take the recorder and listen all the way through. So I got my headphones and I just listened.
Right.
And what was on that freaking recorder to this day sends chills down my spine. Seriously. So I was listening. It was probably like 20 something minutes in, and you hear a woman's voice, and it says, Shane, and then his name. I'm not going to release his name, but it said Shane, his name, and then it changed to a male voice, and it says, I'll kill you.
Oh, dang.
And the reason why, like, I've got chills now. The reason why that has bothered me all these years later is there was no TV on. I made sure of that. There was no radio. There was nobody else there. I know because it was like 4 in the morning, 3:30, 4 in the morning.
Right.
When we arrived at his house, there was nobody there. It was only me and him.
It's crazy.
And it was Shane. And it was a real soft, like almost sing-songy.
Yeah.
The female, and it was clear. And I still have the recorder somewhere. I've got to find it so I can let y'all hear this in real time. It's like, Shane, I'll kill you.
It's weird. Dude.
Freaked me out. And then
no.
So then I was like, should I even
Tell him?
Yeah. But I was like, yeah, I think I should. I mean, because in case he feels like he's just going crazy or something, this may be.
No one ever tell me if you hear something in my house. I want to think I'm going crazy.
Well, instead of him thinking he's going crazy, it's like, okay, well, maybe I can let you know there is something going on. There is something to this. So he listened to it, tears immediately welling up in his eyes. And they welled up in mine too when I first heard it. Because whenever you hear something where it's actually saying your name, whatever it is, and I know that it wasn't matrixing because I was like, I'm not going to even tell you what this is. Just listen. And I said, what did you hear? And he was like, he told me verbatim. It says Shane and then my name and I'll kill you. Freaking crazy. And how do you explain that?
You don't.
You can't. You can't right now. We couldn't readily explain that because no TV, no radio, no AC. Nobody was out and about
to call
on the
you
roads.
by name.
Yeah, they weren't out on the roads because it again was.
They would have to know who you are too.
Yeah,
I mean,
unreal.
Yeah.
So that's how I know that this is what kind of propels me into being interested more in EVP because I know from my own experience that there's strange phenomena happening out there. So what's your story that you have?
So for me, EVPs are one of my favorite types of like evidence. Using the spirit box is one of my favorite forms of like real-time listening. So I have a multitude of stories. I'm just going to pick 2. I won't talk about the first time. So the first investigation I ever did, I was convinced because of an EVP I caught. That's what kind of sent me down appreciating them so much, right? And then so after that, I would lead, I spent a good stint leading groups through investigating, it was their first time investigating and stuff like that. We'd go to places that I now know 100% are haunted because I spent so much time in them. There was this one group that I had, and I used to listen to my digital recorder in real time as we're going through.
Yeah.
That way, if I hear anything, I can play it back for everyone, right?
Yeah.
And in this particular group, it was somebody's birthday, and they said, I sure wish somebody would tell me happy birthday. And it wasn't in that moment that it happened. Maybe 5 minutes later, we're walking down a hallway, and I'm still listening. And then it wasn't even in. It was weird. Wasn't even in both my headphones, but in one of my headphones nearest the wall. You hear somebody, happy birthday. And so for me, it was a multitude of things, right? I stopped dead in my tracks. I was like, y'all aren't going to believe what I just caught because everybody else hasn't heard it because I got my headphones on. They don't know that it happened. And I play it back for them and you can hear it plain as day. But what's interesting is that there's always some kind of like time distortion with EVPs. And even with spirit box stuff, there's some anomalies with that stuff that actually leans a little bit more credibility to me that there's something going on. Like spirit boxes when you get a response in spirit box, oftentimes you get that response and, maybe they say yes, but they'll say yes in a male's voice, yes in a female's voice. And they'll do it like almost like in a ripple, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or whatever that response is a very common occurrence. So spirit box, again, back doing group investigations like that, we would use the SV7 a lot. I even used my Frank's box back then. But I actually started being super careful about it because what would end up happening is you would get a lot of activity, which is fine for me, right? I don't necessarily mind for myself, but I have a whole group of people, and some of these people have never investigated before. As time went on, using the spirit box and using the Frank's box during a session, they would get called by name. They would get called and things would be said that is only relative to them, and we would not know anything about it, something about their home life, people that they knew and stuff like that. And it kind of presented to me certain dangers to using the spirit box, I guess, as to while it's a phenomenon that I enjoy, you have to be careful because the potentials of things being said and you don't know what you're communicating with, right?
Right.
And clearly in these instances, there's things being said that are not even privy to the conversation that we're trying to have. How would that person, entity, whatever we're trying to communicate with, even know this about these people? And it presents a precarious situation. So I would actually stop if it started happening like that. I would actually stop the sessions back then, because people would go home and start having nightmares about it. They would have sleep paralysis about it. I mean, there was like real implications to these people because they're not as veteran in investigating as me and you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it takes hold of them. And maybe that's the point.
Yeah, and some of them don't want to be. Some of them just want to experience something.
And leave it at the door.
Right.
Right.
But sometimes you can't leave it at the door, like you said. Yeah. Very interesting. That's very cool. Well, anyway, this has been a very cool topic.
Yeah,
I love
it.
I love EVP stuff. If you have your own experiences that you want to tell us,
let us know about them.
Follow us on social media. Let us know. If you're not following us already, how dare you?
How dare you? Send us a message.
Shame.
But follow us at Searchers Believe, right?
Yep.
And
you're at the Paranormal Mind?
At the Paranormal Mind.
Paranormal
Lights
Mind.
Out Industries.
Lights Out
IND?
Industries.
Lights Out IND. Lights Out Industries.
Lights Out IND. Yeah. So
all the things.
Yeah, that's our production company. So just follow us anywhere and let us know. And we'd love to hear from you. And we may feature your story in a future podcast episode. Also, before we get going, our sponsors of this season of the podcast is Horn Paranormal.
Horn Paranormal.
And Mandy can't hear any of
can't
this.
hear
She's
that.
just hearing Josh go, woo.
But
But
like the
it's applause.
soundtrack to my everyday life.
I
Yeah,
bet
it's
it
fine.
is.
She's
I,
like,
I feel
whatever.
I feel so sorry for you, Mandy. But Horn Paranormal, they make a lot of really cool paranormal equipment. Some of the stuff that we've been talking about, they're very versed in that gear. So go to hornparanormal.com if you want to pick up any of their merch, or you can go to searchersbelieve.com and you can pick up some of their stuff there. And we've got
some exclusive models.
Exclusive Searchers model stuff. So if you want to pick that up, you can go to searchersbelieve.com as well. If you're not a patron member on our Patreon, you can go.
We are here today to tell you should be.
You can go to, what is it? At
patreon.com /
No.
Searchers Believe.
Mandy will.
You are somebody's grandfather.
I will die on this hill.
/
No one's using a backslash.
How do you know? Maybe.
Oh, Lord, here we go. Marital bliss.
Listen, I still try.
I'm just trying to keep you young. As the youngest person in the room, I think you should trust me.
What are you trying to say, Mandy?
That's rude.
Papaws, both of you.
Wow.
Rude.
Wow. That's horrible.
The audacity.
Well, all right,
I don't remember the 80s. That's all I'm saying.
All right. So go to Patreon, patreon.com /
Searchers Believe.
And sign up for our $25 a month tier, because if you do that, every month we give away one of
an SLS
from Horn Paranormal. So
it is a tried and true piece of equipment that they make.
It's
and
a
it's one of the best designs.
$350 value that we give away every single month. So as long as you're subscribed, you have a chance to win every month. All right. So go check that out. And I guess me and Josh are going to get off this podcast now and go drink some Ensure because Mandy says I will. But thank y'all so much for listening. We really do appreciate you. We appreciate your patience again. Just bear with us because some of the things that we're putting together is going to be well worth kind of the absence of the podcast episodes.
Yep.
We're producing some really cool stuff for you. So we're excited to have that.
Don't worry, guys. We're not
released.
going anywhere.
Nope, not going anywhere. But thank y'all so much for listening. And until the next episode, we'll talk to y'all later.
Love ya.